The way in which St. Joseph was available is a lesson already to us in this Gospel. It happens not just once, but several times. All that is needed is the slightest indication of the divine will, and he responds immediately. We often block out the will of God by our well-programmed and organized desire to have such and such a thing happening or else. It's the source also of our suffering inside. Worry. Worry is there because we command things to be such, because we say they must be such, and we will not permit they be otherwise. Whereas the person who has not that authority over time and space, or over himself, is actually free, and less likely to contaminate his inner sphere forever, because one pain at least he will not have, his own will being frustrated. It does not exist. It is wedded to the will that rules the cosmos, and therefore it's on the winning side. Now it's kind of important because we all have it. Joseph therefore was free, and the means of communication of the divine will, more than once in his case, was a dream. Dreams are interesting parts of our daily existence. The study of them is called onerology. Oner in Greek is a dream. And it is something which can actually be of some interest, for instance, in deciphering the inner world of a person. Why? To some extent, it's the subconscious that's coming to the surface. It also can have a side effect. What happens during a dream? We believe that what is being seen is the truth at that point. So we also see our reactions to it. And when we wake up, we may learn from that experience and act accordingly. For instance, avoiding that something happen. But they are known also to have been, over the centuries, means in which, as in the case of Joseph, God actually has addressed a word. It's rare, but it does happen. And one phenomenon which is not as rare, it would seem, as people think, is that of a dear person coming to us again, for instance, a first time in a dream, not in a good place. So we do something about it, we pray and make penance and get Holy Mass offered. And it has been known quite often that down the line another dream comes with that same person in bright light. Many people have come to me with that pattern over the years, so it happens obviously, and probably it's not just a dream. It's actually so much a part of human existence that the question of divine communications through a dream has been studied in depth by Thomas Aquinas. There is one famous case, not so far from us in time. It's that of the, by now, in the mystical sphere, famous lady who died young in a car accident in Germany, just before the war. She had a friend who was big into prayer and actually became a nun and died very young in the convent. And then they found what had happened, because in her drawer was this manuscript. And the manuscript is quite long, and it was examined very closely, and all the elements of it were verified, and noted to be historically accurate about facts of which she could not have any knowledge. It was just humanly impossible. It was that she had been trying to warn her friend, the other one, to get her act together, basically, because she was in danger of losing her soul. They were both Catholics. And eventually, she got a letter from her mother, the good one now. Annette is dead. Now, this sent a shudder throughout her being, because the good one knew there was a risk in her case. So, what did she do? She went straight into prayer, pleading for mercy for this soul, and went to bed. And then it all began to happen. Now, this is not just any dream. First of all, she was woken up by a strange noise. Eventually, it seems that she'd go back to sleep, but this then happened, which is extremely rare. And the following day, she wrote down exactly, word for word, all that she saw in this, whatever it was. And it was this: Claire, you can stop praying for me. I'm damned. And she was, it would seem, from where she was, on the other side, obliged to say exactly what had happened. Because the other one, good one, had warned her all along, what you're doing is putting you in danger. Now, it goes through very interesting elements of her life, which are all true, and she couldn't have known them, including bits concerning her parents' early life. But then, when I make a jump, it goes to the crunch. What happened this Sunday morning? She and her by now husband were in the car, and she heard in her depth a plea. It was this: you could perhaps go just one more time to church. It was Sunday. And this reaction came out: no! Let's be finished once and for all with all this. I'll bear all the consequences there may be. That happened on the outward journey in the morning. They had their day out, and on the way back, must have been evening, this car came whizzing towards them out of nowhere, dazzling them. Probably just before the war, they hadn't yet invented the dipping system that we have now. And her husband lost control. She muttered or yelled, now a German toned down form of Jesus it would be, but it wasn't a prayer, and she says that. And then she felt a tearing, searing pain going right through her being, and lost consciousness. And then she carried on describing what she saw. It was as in the theatre, when classically they have 3 raps, and on the third the lights are dimmed and the curtain opens on the stage, and there's only light there. All the rest is in darkness. And the stage that she saw was her own life and soul. And then, with the full realization of what it meant to be in that no state, which was given in full lucidity, then she knew that she had no choice but to flee. And she herself, therefore, flew as far as possible from that light, which would therefore have been for her a source of torment and burning had she gone to it. Now that is just reality. It's not either science or faith. It's metaphysics. It's the structure of the soul, of time, and of eternity. The universal human experience. The big question. The moment of separation between body and soul. The Church, which is the mystical body, the sacrament of salvation of the human race, as defined in the Second Vatican Council, is there precisely that we may reach the other side, safe and sound. It's the application of the blood of Calvary. Therefore, when, as in the case of Sheila, one sees the hand of God discreetly through, in this case, a text message, it might be a good idea to go and see Ma'am and anoint her, just on the way here, actually, last time round, that she was fully lucid. It went something like this. Who's that? Opened her eye. Fully lucid. And able to make a lucid confession, remember the entire act of contrition, receive all the sacraments in one go, including the apostolic indulgence, and then what? Holy Communion, lucidly, which stayed in her body just enough for her to receive the grace, and then when I got here, we got this phone call saying that Mammy had vomited, what should we do? And then it explained it's okay, the host is no longer there, therefore it had dissolved, what had done to be burned, the consequences, but she'd had the grace. And then what? Immediately the organs just failed, collapsed more or less, one after the other, and we know the consequences. The following day, she'd had a turn, come. And there we were. And you know, the staff at the hospital were impressed, because the average death is not anything like that quite often. It can be, but often it's quite different in these hospitals. And you know what sometimes happens? They're already discussing the will and infighting while the person is still there. Whereas here, the staff was struck. It was peaceful for several hours. There was peace and prayer and grace in that corner of the hospital. And a peaceful, united family was there. And God was in the midst. Sheila used to say, there are no pockets in the shroud. And she also said, now what's the exact expression?
There's no hitch on a coffin.
There's no hitch on a coffin. And apparently she used to say also, no one ever came back to tell us what it was like on the other side. Well, I'm not so sure. Over the centuries, we've had a few hints. And one of them was an obscure nun. I think she was canonized, but she's not well known. It was way back in the Middle Ages. And she died before the Mother Superior had a chance to say goodbye. The Mother Superior came and, being quite authoritarian, commanded her to come back from death. Her eyes opened and she gently reproached the Mother Superior for recalling her.